the captain of the Shilatai fire station, Song Yan, is a determined, courageous man, deeply committed to his mission of saving lives. He's quiet, rational, and carries a strong sense of responsibility, not only as a leader, but also as a human being. Admired and respected by his team, they have no idea that behind his rigid exterior and firm posture, he hides emotional wounds from the past. After being practically forced to go to the hospital due to a toothache caused by a blow during the latest mission, he's pushed into a doctor's office and immediately recognizes the woman in front of him, refusing to be treated by her. That's when we meet Shu Qin, an emergency surgeon, extremely intelligent and fully dedicated to her profession. She appears cold and mature, the result of a strict and distant upbringing. Her controlled way of handling emotions comes from years of repressing her true feelings. But the moment she recognizes Song Yan, her mask begins to crack, revealing a vulnerable woman, still in love, and deeply scarred by the love they once shared. Back at the fire station, Song Yan thinks about his past with Shu Qin, but his thoughts are interrupted by his best friend, Suo Jun, who senses his discomfort but chooses not to pressure him. The next day, a trainee firefighter causes trouble and refuses to continue Song Yan's rigorous training, claiming it's impossible to complete. Song Yan takes the lead and finishes the task in just 18 seconds. He then scolds and teaches the young man that their job is a race against time to save lives, and that's why they need to train even harder. Meanwhile, a building near Shu Qin's home catches fire, and she decides to go to the scene. On the way, she crosses paths with Song Yan's team and discreetly follows them to help the injured. The firefighters work efficiently, but gradual explosions from gas cylinders make the mission even more dangerous. As the fire consumes almost the entire building, the instructor orders Song Yan to evacuate, but an explosion cuts off contact with the rest of the team. Everyone, including Shu Qin, fears for his life. Suddenly, he emerges safely from the building, carrying a rescued child in his arms. Once the tension fades, Suo Jun tries to punch his friend for constantly putting himself in danger and ignoring orders, but Song Yan dodges the hit with a playful attitude. He then boldly challenges a rich young man to report him. This man had been threatening the rescue team after they damaged his illegally parked car while rushing to the accident. Shu Qin tries to talk to him, but Song Yan completely ignores her. A flashback reveals they met in high school. The popular and outgoing Song Yan fell in love with her at first sight, but she was shy and introverted. Despite all his attempts to talk to her, most didn't work. Later that night, Suo Jun and Song Yan talk about that past relationship. Suo Jun tells him he needs to decide whether to move on or let her back in. At the same time, Shu Qin also reminisces about their high school memories. Although she was quiet and shy, Song Yan was the only one who could break through her shell. She still keeps the box of sweets, the first gift he gave her. The other girls envied Shu Qin for getting close to Song Yan, but none dared to bully her because he protected her. The next morning, Song Yan is questioned by his superior due to multiple complaints, including not following orders and damaging private property. Li Meng tries to defend him, but Song Yan is forced to write a 3,000-word report to reflect on his behavior. Meanwhile, Shu Qin's co-workers gossip about her being from a wealthy and powerful family, crediting her hospital promotion to her background. She's no longer shy. In fact, she has become so confident that she comes across as arrogant. That night, she comes across a blocked road caused by an accident and rushes to help the injured. The police inform her that the ambulance hasn't arrived yet, but she freezes upon seeing that it's Song Yan and his team rescuing the victims. When the ambulance finally arrives, she tries to leave discreetly, but Song Yan notices her. While the injured are taken to the hospital, Suo Jun brings soup to Song Yan, who still hasn't eaten due to the toothache. Suo Jun reveals he's having a hard time with his family, and during an anonymous phone conversation, it's hinted that he's considering quitting or transferring. Song Yan senses something's wrong and tries to ask, but Suo Jun doesn't open up. The next day, while Song Yan pushes the rookies to their limits during training, Shu Qin continues her work at the hospital. Her colleagues still keep their distance, and when the hospital director proposes forming 2 emergency teams, everyone hesitates to join her team. A few days later, she decides to visit the places she used to go with Song Yan. And she remembers how happy, free, and whole she felt when she was with him. But now, all she feels is emptiness in her soul and sadness in her heart. She even goes to his home in a relatively poor neighborhood, but his cousin and aunt are not pleased by her visit. Song Yan's aunt seems a bit skeptical about Shuqin's intentions, while Jai Miao reminds her of the pain Shuqin once caused him. The aunt brings up all the blind dates she arranged for Song Yan and how he never showed up to any of them. Still furious, Jai Miao expresses her determination to keep Shuqin away from her cousin, whom she considers like a brother. At the hospital, a seriously injured firefighter is brought to Shuqin for emergency treatment, but just as she rushes to care for him, a couple starts causing a scene. The husband accuses her of negligence, despite the fact that his wife had already been treated for a minor injury that only required medication. When he lunges at Shuqin, Song Yan steps in and intercepts the attack. While Shuqin goes on to treat the wounded firefighter, Song Yan scolds his subordinates for not reacting fast enough when the man threatened the doctor. Then, he leaves before Shuqin exits the treatment room, but she follows him outside with the excuse of wanting to thank him. Song Yan treats her as nothing more than an old schoolmate and makes it clear he would have done the same for any other doctor. When she invites him for coffee, he tells her to get in line, joking that there are already several women waiting to go out with him, clearly a tactic to push her away. Back in high school, Song Yan used to smoke a lot. When Shuqin became his girlfriend, she gave him a lighter case with her face engraved on it, hoping that every time he reached for a lighter, he would think of her and stop smoking. After work, Shuqin visits her family's home with her brother Yan Chen, where she discovers that her wooden sculptures have disappeared from her room. Upset, she confronts her mother about it. Chen Jin, her controlling mother, firmly orders her to give up such pointless hobbies now that she's graduated from medical school. Shuqin is instructed to engage in social activities within her elite circle instead of doing volunteer work, which she actually enjoys. Just then, their cousin Yixiao arrives for a meal and seems to have a close bond with the siblings. He invites them to check out the new bar he recently opened, teasing Yan Chen about the many beautiful women who hang out there. Chen Jin encourages her son to follow in his cousin's footsteps and find a daughter-in-law with equal or higher social standing. She even gives each of her children an envelope containing photos of potential matches for blind dates. Meanwhile, Song Yan realizes that his lighter is missing and spends the entire day searching for it. That night, Suo Jun finds him rummaging through the trash and points out that, despite what he says, he clearly hasn't moved on from his first love. Song Yan finally opens up about why they broke up 10 years ago. He explains the social class difference between them and how he spent the past decade working hard just to be worthy of standing beside her without shame. But now, it seems like closing the gap between their worlds may be impossible in this lifetime. Hearing this, Suo Jun advises him to let go and forget Shuqin. At the same time, Yan Chen presents two men for Shuqin to choose from, making comments that suggest he suspects she is still in contact with Song Yan. They agree to check out their cousin's bar, and later that night, the siblings join Yixiao, enjoying the upscale service, until a waitress named Ye Zi accidentally spills a drink on the table. Unexpectedly, Yan Chen remains calm and doesn't seem bothered by the incident. He finds the waitress quite similar to his sister, and that seems to attract him. Shuqin learns about a fire safety inspection scheduled for the building and eagerly hopes to see Song Yan among the officials. However, she's disappointed when Li Meng explains there's a separate department dedicated to prevention and building safety. Later, she tells Yixiao about her reunion with Song Yan, and he advises her to give up the idea of getting back together, as her mother would never approve of the relationship. After the talk, she heads to the restroom and sees a couple kissing, which reminds her of a party she once attended with Song Yan. At the time, he had gently covered her eyes after seeing a similar scene, knowing she felt embarrassed. Overwhelmed by nostalgia and longing, she goes straight to the fire station, hoping to see Song Yan. But he instructs the guard to say he's not there. Still, she notices him watching her from a distance. As Shuqin walks away, clearly disheartened, Li Meng arrives and is confused to see her there, especially after they had just run into each other at the bar. Song-yeon finally gets a long-awaited day off and returns home. His aunt tells him about Shu-chin's visit, but he coldly expresses his disdain for her. Another flashback shows them officially in a relationship, deeply in love. Song-yeon had taken Shu-chin to meet his family and visit his home. She was charmed by the warm and welcoming atmosphere. And it was there, with guidance from Song-yeon's uncle, that she discovered her love for wood carving. However, just days later, she abruptly broke up with him. Song-yeon didn't understand why, and Shu-chin cruelly insulted him, saying the difference in class made her lose interest, and that she had only dated him for the thrill. Song-yeon realized she was lying and asked if her parents had forced her to end things, but she didn't answer and ran to the car. In truth, Shu-chin had been forced by her controlling mother to break up, and she cried bitterly as she watched him chase the car, unable to reach her. That night, Song-yeon secretly snuck into her yard to leave a message on her window, asking her to meet him at the park. Sadly, she never showed up. The next day, Song-yeon is called back to work due to a storm warning. Water begins to accumulate on the overpasses, and that night, Shu-chin's car breaks down on one of them while she's on her way to the hospital. The car starts to flood, and the doors are locked. Shu-chin calls emergency services, but as the water rises quickly, she panics. In the distance, she sees flashlights. The firefighters have arrived, and Song-yeon immediately recognizes her. He breaks the car window to rescue her and carries her to safety. As he holds her, Shu-chin clings tightly to him. When he tells her to let go, she hugs him even tighter. Furious, Song-yeon pushes her away, and as she pleads with him to remember their love, he coldly says he would have done the same for anyone. Then he leaves with his team in a boat, while Shu-chin, though shaken, rushes to the hospital. The hospital is overwhelmed with emergency cases, and one patient urgently needs surgery to prevent his condition from worsening. However, the medical staff hesitate to proceed since the specialist isn't available. Shu-chin decides to perform the surgery on her own, going against her colleagues' recommendations, and successfully saves the patient. She also prescribes therapy for the patient's daughter, a traumatized young girl. Because her actions violated hospital protocol, the director harshly reprimands her for being impulsive, but also acknowledges her exceptional skill. Yet, as Shu-chin carefully dries Song-yeon's uniform jacket, which he left behind during the rescue, she doesn't seem concerned at all about others' opinions. After the storm, Song-yeon returns home and meets Jae-myeo's friends, including Yeji. Jae-myeo convinces him to eat with them, hoping to show off her handsome brother and introduce him to some attractive women in an attempt to help him forget Shu-chin. Meanwhile, a conversation between Jae-myeo's parents recalls the time they adopted Song-yeon. His father had died when he was very young, and his mother abandoned him to marry a wealthy man. Mrs. Jae expresses her desire to teach that selfish woman a lesson, and remembering what happened only strengthens her resolve to keep her nephew away from Shu-chin, whom she sees as just as selfish as Song-yeon's mother. During lunch, just like Shu-chin's brother, Song-yeon also notices how much Yeji resembles her, not just in appearance, but also in the shy and introverted manner she had during her teenage years. After lunch, Jae-myeo teases her cousin for stealing glances at Yeji and offers to help him start a relationship. In response, he squeezes her in a tight bear hug to stop her from meddling in his life. Later, Shu-chin visits his house to return his jacket and thank him for rescuing her. But Song-yeon coldly rejects her gesture, stating that he moved on a long time ago. He also refuses her offer to start over. A few days later, the hospital where Shu-chin works organizes a seminar on fire-related emergencies, and she joins, hoping to see Song-yeon. However, it's Lee Meng who leads the seminar, while Song-yeon is busy training his team. It turns out one of his subordinates exaggerated the story of Shu-chin's rescue while telling it to the rookies, and now everyone believes there's something going on between their captain and the doctor. Lee Meng ends the seminar with a team photo that includes Song-yeon standing next to her. The nurses congratulate her on having such a handsome boyfriend, and to Shu-chin's dismay, Lee Meng doesn't deny it. Shu-chin approaches her and asks about Song-yeon, learning that he's not only a captain but also practically a legend among firefighters. A few days later, A major highway accident brings together the hospital staff and the rescue team. 4 or 5 cars had collided, and when Shuchin arrives with her team, she finds Songyan already leading the rescue. One of the cars had fallen off the bridge into the water below. Songyan and his team cut the roof open to rescue the driver and urgently call for medical assistance, as the man is badly crushed between the seats. Shuchin administers a painkiller before they manage to pull the man out. During the process, she's nearly injured by a sharp piece of metal, but Songyan saves her just in time, getting hurt himself in the process. Once the situation is under control and all the victims are treated or sent to the hospital, Shuchin rushes after Songyan and insists he get medical attention. He refuses, until Suojun arrives and forces him into the ambulance. At the hospital, Songyan once again refuses to remove his shirt so Shuchin can examine his injury. Stubborn as ever, he demands another doctor, but Shuchin is even more determined, telling him everyone else is busy. He finally lets her stitch the wound, without anesthesia. Shuchin orders him to return daily so she can change the dressing, which frustrates Songyan as he realizes she's still trying to rekindle their relationship. Shuchin boldly tells him he still has feelings for her. Why else would he always save her when she's in danger? Songyan insists this was a special case because he used to have feelings for her. Their conversation is interrupted by Li Meng, who enters the room worried and helps Songyan put on his shirt, which leaves Shuchin visibly upset and jealous. When Li Meng steps out to get him some slippers, Shuchin seizes the moment to explain that, at the time, she was too young and dependent on her parents, and she had no choice. But Songyan responds coldly, saying not even abandoned animals are discarded the way she threw him away, and that he could never go through that pain again. He leaves, and Shuchin breaks down in tears. Li Meng returns with the slippers, and noticing the tension in the air, she realizes Shuchin is the woman Songyan once loved. She tells him that if he's truly decided not to go back to her, he should give her a chance, because she has feelings for him too. But Songyan makes it clear that he won't be with either of them. Meanwhile, the blood test results from the rescued man reveal that he is HIV positive. Shuchin immediately declares a state of emergency, ordering that all medical instruments be sterilized and that everyone who had contact with the patient be tested. The fire department is also notified, since Songyan and 3 of his colleagues were involved in rescuing the infected man. Meanwhile, the patient's mother causes a scene at the hospital, demanding that Dr. Shuchin transfer her son to a private room instead of the ICU. The woman shows no concern for the other people her son might have infected, which makes Shuchin's blood boil. Without hesitation, she fires back, telling the woman that the life of every worker is equally important, especially the firefighters who saved her son. If it weren't for them, he wouldn't have survived. She needs to learn how to be grateful. Since the hospital had already vaccinated its staff, there are only 3 doses of the medication left, meaning one of the firefighters will have to wait until more arrives. Shuchin tells Songyan he should take the medicine first, as he's the one most at risk due to his injury. However, Songyan insists that his colleagues take it before him. This infuriates Shuchin. She forces him to stay at the hospital under observation and immediately sends requests for more medicine to other hospitals. She finally secures an additional dose and administers it to him herself, stating that she respects his decision not to want anything more with her. Back at the fire station, Songyan listens as Suojun vents about not having seen his wife in a while due to work, and how she's been taking care of his ailing father. As they walk back to the dorms, they overhear the new recruits quietly complaining about Songyan's harsh training methods. The next day, the blood test results come in. All 4 firefighters are safe. Songyan goes to tell Suojun the good news, but accidentally comes across his transfer request, leaving him stunned. He confronts Suojun for making such a decision without telling him, pointing out how difficult it will be to manage both the station and the rookies alone. Suojun explains that he needs to be closer to his family and earn more money to take care of his father. Still, Songyan remains furious. Feeling betrayed and abandoned, he accuses his friend of desertion. Back at the hospital, Shuchin uses all her composure and skill to save a patient whose heart nearly stopped. The display of teamwork and her steady leadership earn her admiration and respect from her team. Even Dr. Yang, the leader of the other team, who had doubted her, recognizes Shu Qin's talent. Later, Yang approaches her in the locker room and praises her for the excellent work that moved the patient's family to express their gratitude. Shu Qin responds that she's just doing her duty without expecting thanks, which only deepens Yang's interest in her. However, Shu Qin remains indifferent to forming bonds at work and doesn't open up. The next day, Song Yan takes out his frustration by pushing the recruits even harder in training. When Suo Jun tries to step in, he too is scolded, something that had never happened before. The subordinates notice it's the first time Song Yan has shown anger toward Suo Jun, even going so far as to ignore his attempts at reconciliation. Meanwhile, Yixiao meets with Yan Chen and brings up Shu Qin's recent reunion with Song Yan, noting that her feelings for him haven't changed. Yixiao says Shu Qin is very lonely and suggests that Yan Chen take her to his bar to introduce her to his ex-girlfriend Zhou Yan in hopes that they'll become friends. As Yixiao hoped, the two women hit it off right away despite having opposite personalities, even challenging each other to a drinking contest. Shu Qin emerges victorious, and as Yixiao carries them out, he jokes about blacklisting them from his bar. As Yan Chen escorts Shu Qin to her car, he bumps into Yezi, who apologizes for scratching his car with her bicycle. He tells her not to worry about compensation, and then takes his sister up to the apartment. After carefully putting her to bed, he settles onto the living room couch and recalls the first time he saw her. It's revealed that Shu Qin is his adoptive sister, and they are not biologically related. They met the night Shu Qin lost her parents in a car accident. Yan Chen's parents took him to the hospital to pick her up, and from that moment on, he became her older brother. He became instantly attached to her and would do anything to protect her, even secretly retrieving a toy their controlling mother had thrown away, defying her for the first time. The next morning, Shu Qin wakes up to find Yan Chen making breakfast. She tells him about her encounter with Song Yan and how he refused to give her another chance. Yan Chen listens quietly as she blames herself for everything and says she doesn't deserve love or recognition in life. A few hours later, Song Yan's team is dispatched on a mission. Shu Qin is surprised to see them at the entrance of her building. They're there to rescue a child hanging from the balcony just above her apartment. Song Yan safely rescues the child, and Shu Qin helps treat the boy's hand, which was stuck in the railing, while Song Yan holds the boy and watches her with admiration. When the child's parents arrive, they thank both of them enthusiastically. Shu Qin takes the opportunity while Song Yan is washing his hands to ask one of his subordinates for his contact number. He agrees, on the condition that she never tells the captain who gave it to her. Later, she offers Song Yan some tea as he comes out of the bathroom, and also helps treat a scratch on his arm. Surprisingly, he allows it and struggles to look away from her, even though he clearly wants to keep his distance. Shu Qin praises his skills in leadership, but he leaves before she can get any closer. She rushes to the balcony and shouts out, asking if he'll be free next weekend. But Song Yan completely ignores her. Even so, Shu Qin isn't discouraged and excitedly checks his contact profile. Meanwhile, Yan Chen, who is usually quite creative in his ideas, fails at a business meeting with investors. His secretary immediately informs his mother, Chen Jin, who calls him and demands that he satisfy the shareholders and keep them happy. Frustrated by his mother's tight control, Yan Chen quickly finds out who's been feeding her information. He confronts his secretary and warns him to work for just one boss. The secretary wisely chooses to stay loyal to him. The next day, Shu Qin takes the initiative to compliment Dr. Yang on her hairstyle and purse. She also sends a message to Song Yan, but he doesn't reply. First, because he doesn't recognize the number, and second, because Jai Miao calls to say she'll be bringing him some winter clothes as the cold season approaches. He tells his team not to jump to conclusions when one of them announces that a girl is waiting for him at the front gate. But as he leaves the tool room, the subordinate reveals to the others that the visitor isn't his sister. It's the doctor they all know, which instantly sparks everyone's curiosity, and they secretly follow the captain to eavesdrop on the conversation. Song Yan only realizes it's Shu Qin when he reaches the gate. She casually says she was just passing by and decided to say hi, then suggests he invite her to dinner since she let him use her apartment during the rescue mission. Song Yan tries to refuse, but this time she manages to convince him to set a dinner date. The next day, Shuqin tries to get ready for the date and, being inexperienced with such things, asks her new friend for help. Jo-yeon arrives with a bunch of accessories to assist. Shuqin realizes that Jo-yeon lives freely and on her own terms, completely opposite from her own restricted life. Even Song-yeon discreetly worries about his appearance and considers getting a haircut. At that moment, Suo-jun shows up and offers to trim his hair, and Song-yeon reluctantly agrees. During the haircut, however, Song-yeon remains cold and distant, frustrating Suo-jun's attempts to make conversation. Shuqin, feeling nervous, arrives at the location well before the scheduled time. By the time Song-yeon arrives, it's already raining. She takes him to the restaurant they used to frequent back in their school days. He silently watches her as she orders all of their old favorite dishes. Shuqin keeps praising the food, saying it tastes exactly the same as it did years ago. But Song-yeon disagrees. He thinks the food no longer tastes the same, or maybe he's changed and no longer enjoys the things he once did. Song-yeon finishes eating quickly, while Shuqin eats slowly, wishing to stay close to him for just a little longer. Song-yeon feels he won't be able to resist her much longer. She looks so cute and beautiful, and she's right there next to him. Trying to keep his distance, he scolds her for eating too slowly, which only makes her seem even cuter. Unable to control himself, he says he'll wait for her outside. As she leaves, he gets a call from Jae Miao, asking for help at the police station. Shuqin offers to drive him there, and he accepts, given the urgency of the situation. However, Song-yeon feels uncomfortable in her luxury car and warns her not to use her connections to help him. Shuqin learns that Jae Miao is a smart girl studying at a prestigious university. She follows Song-yeon inside the police station, even though he doesn't want her to, which irritates Jae Miao. But attention quickly shifts to the reason for her arrest. She was caught selling counterfeit goods and refuses to reveal her supplier, making it harder to get her released. Shuqin asks for a few minutes alone with her. She calmly explains the legal trouble Jae Miao could face, including the risk of expulsion from university and the damage it could do to her brother's career. Eventually, Jae Miao gives in and reveals she was doing part-time sales work for a client, and she provides his contact. However, the number had long since been deactivated, and Jae Miao receives a hefty fine for selling counterfeit items. Since Song-yeon doesn't have the money at the moment, Jae Miao remains in custody until the fraudster is found or the amount is paid. Shuqin decides to ask Yixiao for help. He's with Yan Chen, and since she can't use her own bank account due to her mother's surveillance, she turns to her cousin. The two of them go to the station, but when Song-yeon finds out they're there to help, he becomes furious. Offended, he scolds Shuqin and tells her to leave with them. She runs after him and pleads with him to let Yan Chen intervene to protect his sister's future. The department's chief inspector soon arrives, helping secure Jae Miao's release thanks to Yan Chen's influence. Not only does this free her, but it makes Song-yeon feel the social class gap between them even more. Even Jae Miao initially refuses help from Shuqin's family, but Song-yeon convinces her otherwise. With the situation resolved, Yan Chen drives Shuqin home, and the siblings argue about her involvement with Song-yeon. Yan Chen warns her that their mother would never approve, but Shuqin insists she deserves the right to make her own choices. Meanwhile, Song-yeon speaks with Jae Miao about what happened and admits he still has feelings for Shuqin, but he will do everything he can to avoid her. Jae Miao, acting like a supportive sister, promises to treat Shuqin better out of respect for her brother's feelings. Unlike her brother, Yixiao encourages Shuqin to date Song-yeon already, just so she can figure out whether it'll work or if it's time to move on. He tells her she can't keep hurting herself like this. Meanwhile, Song-yeon's rescue team is dispatched to another emergency. A young woman is threatening to jump from a building. She was an ambitious girl who lost her job due to a cruel boss, and instead of support, she received only criticism from her family. Suo-jun tries to connect with her, sharing his own life experiences to build empathy, while the team prepares safety measures. He nearly convinces her to step back, but some bystanders start shouting insults, calling her useless and a disgrace to her family. Already in despair, the girl jumps, but Suo-jun leaps after her and manages to bring her down safely onto the air cushion. He immediately scolds the onlookers for their cruel comments, calling them insensitive and ignorant of how much a life is worth. Back in the dorm, Jai Miao tells Yezi about the trouble caused by the supplier she recommended, revealing that her brother had to pay a large fine. Feeling guilty, Yezi suggests they work together to help repay Song-yan's debt. Song-yan hears about Suo-jun's incredible performance during the mission and goes to see him. He finally admits he overreacted and apologizes for his behavior. Suo-jun accepts the apology, and now with clear minds, the two promise that nothing will ever come between their friendship again. They go for a walk and have a light, easy conversation. Later that night, Suo-jun receives a message from the girl he rescued. She thanks him for stopping her from making a terrible mistake and promises to live her new life to the fullest. That sense of purpose gives Suo-jun the motivation to stay at the Shilitai station for another year. However, his girlfriend refuses to wait for him that long and breaks up with him, leading to an emotional breakdown. The next day, Song-yan takes part in a seminar on the use of robotics in rescue operations. While many of Jiang Yu's ideas make sense, Song-yan points out that rescuers often have to make immediate and delicate decisions, something robots can't do. Jiang Yu is impressed and approaches him afterward to talk, but Song-yan doesn't give him much attention. Later, Song-yan visits the station director and asks him to approve Suo-jun's transfer request, promising to run the station alone. However, he's surprised to learn that Suo-jun never actually submitted a request. Meanwhile, Suo-jun's team responds to a fire emergency, during which he gets trapped inside a building while rescuing a woman. His colleagues manage to pull him out, but he sustains serious injuries. Upon hearing the news, Song-yan rushes to the hospital and finds Suo-jun in critical condition. One of his hands has been crushed, and his face is badly burned. Deeply shaken, Song-yan cries as he sees his friend in such pain, but Suo-jun remains calm and comforts him. His greatest concern is the girl he saved, who also suffered severe burns. Suo-jun continues trying to reassure Song-yan and expresses how proud he is to have worked at the best rescue station alongside the best firefighter. Once he's recovered enough to stand, the department holds a ceremony in his honor. Suo-jun retires with many medals and heartfelt goodbyes. Song-yan is the most emotional, hugging him tightly in tears, when suddenly, the fire alarm goes off. The team quickly gears up and heads out for the mission, while Suo-jun stays behind to tidy up one last time. As he walks out, unsure of his future, his girlfriend appears with flowers in hand. She scolds him for giving up on their relationship so easily, saying she was just angry. Then, she confesses her unconditional love, easing all of his insecurities about his appearance. She takes his hand, and together, they walk home. Meanwhile, Chen Jin pressures Xu Qin to choose someone for a blind date, and Xu Qin randomly picks the first photo shown to her. Chen Jin seems pleased with her choice. It's Jiang Yu, the same man Song-yan met at the robotics seminar. Chen Jin orders her to contact him and set up a time and place for the date. The next day, Song-yan has to train the new recruits alone for the first time, which makes him nostalgic. Meanwhile, the girl Suo-jun rescued finally wakes up, but becomes traumatized upon seeing her burned face. She shuts herself off from the medical staff and refuses to see anyone. Dr. Yang tries to offer support, but the girl lashes out, saying she wasn't the one whose face was destroyed. The following day, Dr. Yang tries to convince Minnie, the burn victim, to accept the surgery. But deeply depressed, Minnie says she would rather die than live disfigured. After everyone leaves the room, Xu Qin enters and tells her about Suo-jun. She encourages Minnie not to throw away a life that was saved with such sacrifice. Xu Qin shares that Suo-jun's face was also burned, but the woman who loves him welcomed him with open arms, giving Minnie hope and motivation to keep going. Soon, word spreads that Minnie agreed to undergo surgery, surprising everyone and sparking curiosity about how Xu Qin convinced her. That weekend, Xu Qin and Yan Chen return home, and she's surprised to discover their mother monitors his bank transactions too. Chen Jin questions a recent transfer he made to help Xu Qin pay Jai Miao's fine. Yan Chen lies, saying he helped a friend, and protests against the surveillance, but Chen Jin says it's normal to want to know everything about her children. Then, she exposes his lie by revealing she knows about the police station visit. She then orders Shu-Qin to schedule her date with Zhang Yu. After being sent to her room, Chen Jin reveals yet another lie of Yan Chen's. She knows Song Yan is back in Shu-Qin's life. Later, Shu-Qin meets with Zhang Yu, but they're just getting into their conversation when she receives a transaction alert from Song Yan, who returned the money she had lent him to help Jai Miao. She makes up an emergency at the hospital and leaves. Shu-Qin tries to reject the money, but knowing he wouldn't accept that, she instead asks him to repay her with a dinner. Song Yan agrees without resistance. He seems to be considering giving her another chance and even tells his aunt about his decision to reconnect with his ex, which worries her. She fears he'll get hurt again. Zhu-Qin also talks to her mother about leaving the date early and subtly brings up the idea that she might like someone else. But Chen Jin calmly threatens her not to make her repeat the past. It's then revealed why Song Yan has treated Shu-Qin so coldly. After their breakup, her mother sent her to study abroad. Song Yan continued sending letters, but never received a reply because Chen Jin had blocked all of them. Song Yan was heartbroken, feeling discarded, as if he had never existed. In reality, Shu-Qin never even knew. Later that night, Shu-Qin has an honest conversation with her father. He expresses concern about her love life, questioning why she's never been able to connect with any of the many men from her blind dates. When Shu-Qin confesses that she still has feelings for Song Yan, he becomes even more uneasy, knowing well how controlling his wife can be. He's direct with her. If she insists on being with Song Yan, she'll have to choose between her love and her family. This reminds Shu-Qin of the first time her mother found out about Song Yan. Back then, she was pressured with the exact same ultimatum: choose him or the family. The weight was unbearable for Shu-Qin, who was so grateful to the family that took her in, and she decided to end things with Song Yan. Now facing that reality once more, Song Yan is back in her life. During their meal, Shu-Qin nervously brings up how they've been helping each other recently. She thanks him for everything he's done for her and clarifies that, after his help with Jai Miao's situation, they're even. Song Yan, who already struggles to trust her again because of her overly logical way of thinking, doesn't argue much. He simply says he deserves this punishment for falling in love with her at first sight. Their conversation is interrupted by cries for help coming from a nearby restaurant, and Song Yan rushes to assist. He rescues the trapped kitchen staff and carries out a woman hiding under a table. To Shu-Qin's surprise, the woman is her best friend, Zhou Yan, who instantly becomes smitten with Song Yan's heroic demeanor and good looks. Realizing that Shu-Qin knows him, she begs for his phone number. Shu-Qin hesitates, but eventually gives in to her friend's persistence. Zhou Yan calls Song Yan right away to thank him and invites him for a meal, but he hangs up without much interest, relieving Shu-Qin. Still, Zhou Yan vows to win him over. Back at the station, Song Yan takes out his frustration on a punching bag. He feels torn, unsure whether to blame Shu-Qin for rekindling his hope or to blame fate itself. Meanwhile, Shu-Qin decides to talk to Yixiao and sends him a message saying she'll visit his bar. But things get complicated when she finds both Yan Chen and Zhou Yan there too. When Shu-Qin arrives, she's surprised to see them. Before she can say anything, Zhou Yan starts ranting about her unlucky love life. She talks about the hot firefighter she's been trying to set a date with, but who keeps rejecting her. Just then, she receives a message from Song Yan, agreeing to dinner. Zhou Yan celebrates her small victory and even reveals his name to the group. She rushes out to get ready, leaving Yan Chen and Yixiao shocked by who she's interested in. Shu-Qin tries to keep her composure, but ends up crying in the bar's restroom. Sensing someone nearby, she pretends to be just washing her face, but Yezi sees the tears. Meanwhile, Song Yan's parents talk about his recent strange behavior and conclude that he's been like this ever since he saw Shu-Qin again. They decide to keep him away from her to protect him from more heartbreak. Shu-Qin keeps drinking to numb her heartache and eventually gets drunk. She leaves the bar alone, refusing her cousin and brother's offer to take her home. The two secretly follow her by taxi and realize she's heading to Song Yan's place instead of her own apartment. She forces her way in when Jai Miao opens the door. Jai Miao scolds her for barging in and demands that she leave her brother alone, now that he's decided to move on and go on a date. but she's left speechless when she sees how Shu Qin, who never shows her emotions, was visibly shaken, especially when she sees Song Yan arriving home. Yi Qiao also shows up and tries to drag her away, but she refuses. Finally, Shu Qin lets all her repressed emotions out. She accuses Song Yan of not loving her as much as she loves him and pushes him for going out with someone else. She confesses that she broke up with him because of her parents' pressure, feeling indebted to them for raising her. But she also reveals her plan to rise in her career and become independent so she can fight for their love and repay her family debt. On top of that, she accuses Song Yan of knowing all along that she never moved on, that she's been trying to reconnect, while he never once reached out over all these years. Song Yan realizes that Shu Qin never received his letters and remains silent, while she hits him and demands to know whether he still loves her, until Yi Qiao pulls her away. Zhai Miao tries to defend her brother and reveal the hidden truths, but Song Yan doesn't let her speak, as if emotionally overwhelmed. Realizing all the misunderstandings, he runs after Shu Qin, but can only watch helplessly as Yan Chen drives his sister away in his luxury car. The past reveals that the two most important men in Shu Qin's life have always been at odds because of her. Yan Chen constantly pushed her away from Song Yan. While Song Yan reflects on Shu Qin's emotional outburst, Yan Chen tries to take her to the family home, and Yi Qiao warns him to be careful with their parents. If they find out she's drunk, it'll be chaos. Yan Chen regrets the past. He's always been his sister's safe place, whether during fear or celebration. It's also revealed that the note Song Yan left on Shu Qin's window, asking her to meet him at the park, was actually seen and removed by Yan Chen. The next morning, Song Yan decides to meet Shu Qin to clear up all the misunderstandings. His family agrees, on the condition that it will be the last time he goes after her. He calls Shu Qin, and they agree to meet outside her apartment. Shu Qin convinces him to come inside and cook something for them. He makes rice porridge, and Song Yan gently brings up the previous night, reminding her that she said she never wanted to see him again. He asks if that's really what she wants, and her expression says otherwise. Song Yan gives her one last chance, telling her she can take all the time she needs to decide. Either they'll be together, or they'll part ways for good. If she chooses the first, he'll be her support and stay by her side. He then says goodbye, telling her he'll wait for her answer. Shu Qin is left alone to make the hardest decision of her life, because choosing Song Yan means giving up her family, who will never accept someone they see as unworthy of her status. After much thought, she finally decides, and with tears in her eyes, she takes the bowl of porridge. Later, Yan Chen comes to pick her up and take her to the hospital. He notices her gloomy expression as she opens up, saying their lives are like wild animals in captivity. Freedom feels like a crime. She speaks of her helplessness under their mother's authority and says she doesn't deserve someone as good as Song Yan. When they arrive at the hospital, Yan Chen is visibly shaken by his sister's emotional state. He suggests they move to another country, but Shu Qin immediately refuses. Meanwhile, Chen Jin plays golf with the hospital's vice president, and it's revealed that she's been hindering her daughter's career growth. She doesn't want her to work too hard. She just wants her to marry someone of equal status. At the fire station, the firefighters discuss the credentials of the new instructor. He comes from a wealthy family, which makes them question why he would join such a dangerous job. They conclude that he must just be seeking adventure, and will likely return to the family business once the excitement wears off. The new instructor turns out to be none other than Chen Jim, to Song Yan's surprise. At the hospital, Shu Qin is excluded from the interviews to select new researchers, as everyone assumes she used her privileged background to get in. However, she storms into the evaluation room and personally submits her resume. She insists on her qualifications and claims she's never used shortcuts to get anything. The committee reluctantly agrees to interview her, and she's accepted to everyone's surprise. At the fire station, Chen Jim becomes fascinated with Song Yan's dog, Meng, and tries to pet him, only to be met with a fierce bark. Interestingly, Meng is also Shu Qin's family name. That night, Song Yan feels even more unsettled seeing Chen Jim occupying what used to be Suo Jun's room. He decides to go for a walk along the station's training track, trying to clear his mind and forget the pain of losing his best friend. Meanwhile, Yan Chen drinks out of frustration, tired of always being monitored. He feels the crushing weight of his mother's control. And now that even Shu Qin refuses to run away with him, it's clear she wants to stay and be with Song Yan. Yan Chen calls a private driver through an app, and the assigned driver turns out to be Yezi. She admits that she works 2 part-time jobs to cover her expenses and repay her student loans. Yan Chen gives her an extra tip and suggests she take a taxi home, but the young woman pulls a bicycle from the car's trunk and rides away, saving the fare. The next day, Chen Jim is surprised to see that even during their time off, Song Yan's team continues their intense training. He expresses concern that the firefighters may become too fatigued to perform effectively during emergencies. But Song Yan disagrees, pointing out the tough conditions they face on rescue missions. He argues that strength training gives them the endurance they need to overcome obstacles rather than collapse. As lunchtime approaches, the station receives a large food delivery as a thank you gift from someone who was rescued in a previous mission. However, the firefighters are disappointed when Song Yan refuses to accept it, reminding them of the station's rule against receiving gifts of gratitude. At that moment, Chen Jim steps in, promising not to make the same mistake again, but also pointing out that wasting food wouldn't be right. Reluctantly, Song Yan allows them to enjoy the meal. Right after, he steps outside to answer a call from Zhou Yan and scolds her for sending the food. He tells her he doesn't want anything to do with her and reveals that her best friend, Shu Qin, was his first love. Shocked, Zhou Yan rushes to confront Shu Qin. She's upset that Shu Qin never told her Song Yan was her ex-boyfriend and declares that from now on, she wants nothing to do with him. She explains that friends' boyfriends and exes are strictly off-limits to her. While Shu Qin apologizes for hiding the truth, Zhou Yan realizes the deep love still exists between them and encourages Shu Qin to fight for it, even if it means going against her family. Meanwhile, Chen Jim struggles with the younger recruits as some of them refuse to acknowledge him as Suo Jun's replacement. They assume he'll quit soon due to his privileged background. On top of that, Chen Jim is unfamiliar with the intense training style enforced by Song Yan, as it's not something required elsewhere. To prove himself, he decides to join the recruits and runs the mountain trail with a heavy backpack. However, compared to the others, he struggles to finish the mission within the required time and falls behind. After everyone returns to the station, they realize Chen Jim is still missing. They wait a few hours but begin to worry as the weather suddenly turns bad. Just as they prepare to search for him, he finally returns. He pushed himself to the limit to prove his dedication, something everyone, including Song Yan, recognizes. Chen Jim admits he wanted to show his resilience and commitment to the station. Later, when he gets back to his room, he finds some ointment and medicine left for his blistered feet, courtesy of Song Yan. Meanwhile, Zhu Qin returns home and finds her mother sitting in the living room. Chen Jin brought food and compliments her daughter for keeping the apartment clean, but her real reason for the surprise visit is to check whether Shu Qin has been hosting anyone at home. Shu Qin picks up on this and asks for a little privacy, but Chen Jin returns to her toxic behavior, revealing that she knows about Shu Qin's visit to the police station, thanks to Song Yan's sister. She proudly recalls that Jai Miao is a questionable girl, just like her brother, which is why she ended up in trouble with the law. Zhu Qin nearly loses her composure at her mother's comment and says she's been holding herself back from wanting Song Yan back in her life just to please her. She then reveals that the only time she ever truly felt the comfort of home was when Song Yan made her rice porridge in this very apartment. Hearing this, Chen Jin threatens her with all the favors she's done for her. She calls Shu Qin a hypocrite for feeling grateful just because a man served her a bowl of porridge, while her family has always taken care of her needs, providing her with comfort and luxury. She lists the apartment, the car, and even her hospital job as examples. Shu Qin tries to interject, saying she earned the job on her own merit, but Chen Jin dismisses that, reminding her that her last name played a crucial role in securing a position at such a prestigious hospital. She then orders her to keep being an obedient daughter and walks out. Meanwhile, the fire station is buzzing with excitement as the new group of recruits undergoes evaluation tests. One of them gets injured during the process, and his teammates carry him to a room to rest. As payment, each of them takes a charcoal face mask from him, and that's how Chen Jim finds them. The situation turns into a lighthearted conversation, and the recruits ask Chen Jim to talk to Song Yan about letting them join real missions. But in this case, Chen Jim agrees with Song Yan, saying he can't risk their lives while their training is still incomplete, since rescue missions are extremely dangerous. Later, Chen Jim approaches Song Yan and asks him to reconsider the way he sees him, assuring him that he takes the profession seriously and feels it is his true calling. Song Yan seems to have already realized this and simply gives him a faint smile in response. Jai Miao and her friends are feeling anxious as they approach graduation and begin the job hunt. One of them jokes that the easiest solution would be to find a rich boyfriend who could solve all their financial problems. Coincidentally, Yan Chen finds Yezi's student ID in his car and returns it to the university's student affairs office. Yezi finds out and goes personally to thank him, but he doesn't respond with much enthusiasm. On the other hand, Song Yan slowly begins to open up to Chen Jim. They talk about how they chose their careers, and Chen Jim reveals that, despite coming from a wealthy family, his mother always encouraged him to pursue something that made him happy. Mentioning his mother reminds Song Yan of his own parents. His father was a construction supervisor back in 1999. Due to unforeseen circumstances, many workers were laid off without receiving their wages, which caused concern and unrest. Even though his own job was secure, his father cared about the others. He rallied the workers for a peaceful protest against the Hmong group, which sparked the fury of Chen Jin. She gathered all the shareholders and demanded that none of the laid-off workers be paid, claiming they had tarnished the company's reputation. She even promised to teach the man a lesson for standing against them. Meanwhile, Song Yan's mother is portrayed as a selfish and ambitious woman who enjoyed going out to bars at night. The couple constantly argued over his low income, and she refused to give up her freedom for marriage. Days later, a colleague and friend of Song Yan's father, who had protested alongside him, turned against him and accused him of taking a bribe, all under Chen Jin's influence. Song Yan's father was fired, and shortly after, his wife abandoned him and young Song Yan to run off with a wealthy man. After that, his father sank into alcoholism, and Song Yan had to take care of both the house and his father as a child. His father often came home late, until one night, he didn't come home at all. Song Yan woke up in the middle of the night and, seeing the empty bed, went out looking for him. But he didn't need to go far. His father had passed out at the doorstep, and due to the freezing cold, had died.